When we play an RPG, the dungeon usually feels like just another hurdle before the next big story moment. We push forward, we grind, we fight, and then we're off to the cutscene that really matters. But what if the dungeon itself was more than filler? What if the real story was hidden in the numbers, in the damage dealt, the gold collected, and the EXP gained? What if the statistics were just as epic as the adventure? Welcome to the Dungeon Ledger. This is where we take classic JRPGs and break them down, not into legend or lore, but into the raw stats that make every victory possible. For this series, we'll be diving deep into Lunar 2 Eternal Blue. It's a classic JRPG packed with heart, but here we're less about the story and more about the stats. Each dungeon has its own rhythm of damage, EXP, and gold, and over the next few episodes, we're going to uncover exactly what those numbers reveal. So let's begin with our first stop. Our first stop is Tabin's Peak, more of a mini dungeon than a true test. Think of it like the warm-up lap before the Marabian sewers really bring in the real challenge. Even so, the numbers don't lie. By the time we were done, the party had dished out 6,564 points of damage. In return, we only took 891. That's some solid efficiency. In fact, we only took about 13.5% as much damage as we dished out. That's like punching someone 10 times and only getting lightly flicked in the ear in return. Experience-wise, we walked away with 1,768 experience. Nothing game-changing, but enough to keep the momentum rolling. And on top of that, we hauled in a whopping 2,900 gold. It's not exactly Dragon Horde levels of treasure, but a nice little bonus for the effort. Altogether, Tabin's Peak gave us 13 total encounters. When you spread the numbers across those fights, it means we averaged about 500 damage dealt per battle, while only taking around 69 in return. Each encounter netted us roughly 136 experience and about 223 gold. What does that mean in other words? Tabin's Peak is not punishing, it's efficient. It's more like practice swings than a real test, but it's still a good reminder that even the baby dungeons can leave behind a trail of numbers that are worth crunching. Next up, the Marabian sewers, and this is where things finally start to feel like a real dungeon. Compared to Tabin's Peak, this one does not pull any punches. By the end of it, the party had dealt out a staggering 27,467 points of damage, which is a massive jump from the warm-up lap that we had earlier. Of course, the sewers didn't let us off easy either. We also took 2,507 points of damage in return. Still, the ratio was very much in our favor, but you could really feel this dungeon hits landing a lot harder here. Already you can see how much more intense this dungeon is in comparison to Tabin's Peak. The party's taking nearly 3 times as much damage, but they're also raking in way more EXP and gold. Now on the reward side, the party walked out with 6,592 experience points. That's almost 4 times what we earned in Tabin's Peak. It's a real step up that makes this dungeon feel like progress. And along with that, we collected 7,418 gold. Finally enough to make us feel like we're earning money instead of just scraping by. Now this by no means was a short crawl. 30 encounters were logged in total, and across those battles the numbers were smooth out to some interesting averages. We were dealing just over 900 damage per fight, taking about 84 back, earning roughly 220 experience while pocketing close to 250 gold each time. And unlike Tabin's Peak, this dungeon actually caps things off with a boss battle, the final fight where a big chunk of that damage and experience came from. Like the sewer themselves were saying, you had enough rats, now have some assassins. So with both dungeons behind us, let's take a step back and look at the full picture. Together, Tabin's Peak and Marabian Sewers handed us 8,360 experience points. Not enough to rocket us into endgame levels, but definitely a steady boost that helps keep the party climbing. On top of that, we hauled in just over 10,000 gold. Not exactly a dragon's sword, but plenty to keep the journey moving strong. Now here's where things get fun. Let's talk about efficiency. Across all 43 encounters, each fight averaged just under 200 experience and a little over 200 gold each. Not bad for what's essentially the opening act of this adventure. Because when you add it all up, the final damage number is staggering. The total damage that we dealt across both dungeons comes to a colossal, a crushing, an absolutely overwhelming 34,031. 34,000. That's not just damage, that's devastation. It's the kind of number that turns dungeons into rubble and bosses into footnotes. This wasn't just survival, this was domination written in raw stats. Efficiency, domination, precision. That's what the dungeons showed us. But JRPGs always have a room for a little unpredictability, and nothing embodies that better than Ronfar's Destiny dice. So before we wrap up, we have to talk about the wild card in all of this. Now, this move is pure chaos. You, the player, call odd or even, Ronfar throws the dice, and if you're right, every enemy on screen gets slammed. But if you're wrong, Ronfar takes a hit to himself. It's less like casting a spell, it's more like gambling your hit points at the casino. Across this run, we threw the dice 37 times. 19 of those rolls landed big, satisfying blasts across the whole battlefield. The other 18, Ronfar basically punched himself in the face. That leaves us with a 51% win rate, which is basically a coin flip dressed up in dice. What makes it so fun, though, is the swing of it. 1 minute, Ronfar is the hero, wiping out a whole group in one roll, where the next one he's flat on his back because you guessed wrong. Destiny dice isn't just an attack, it's a gamble, and in this run, the odds were perfectly balanced between genius and disaster. And that, my friends, is how you obliterate 2 dungeons and turn it into cold, hard math. Honestly, this was just way too fun, and also probably the nerdiest thing I have ever done. I mean, who else plays a JRPG and thinks, forget the sword, hand me a calculator? But hey, if sports fans get excited with stats about batting averages and free throw percentages, then JRPG nerds like us can be just as excited over stats about EXP averages and damage efficiencies. Now, if you enjoyed this and you want to help me keep crunching the numbers, here's the best way to support the show. Subscribe to the channel and keep up to date with the next episodes. Subscribe to my Kick channel, that's where I stream live JRPG runs, experiments, and probably more questionable math. And don't forget to follow me on TikTok. I post short, bite-sized JRPG clips and nerdy stat breakdowns there as well. Seriously, your support on Kick and TikTok makes a massive difference and helps me keep making videos like this. So thank you so much for watching this episode of the Dungeon Ledger. Next time means a new dungeon, new battles, new treasure, and of course, new numbers to obsess over. But until then, may your loot drops be legendary, may your EXP multipliers be high, and may your victories always be written in the stats that matter. Catch you in the next dungeon.